Our thoughts are with his family, and we ask everyone to respect their privacy.
Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today. But if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace. You know, I was going to come on today, ladies and gentlemen. The big news, obviously, is Donald Trump was turning himself in. That's actually, well, it's really not big news, but we've been knowing about it, hearing about it for weeks to come. And obviously, everywhere plastered on CNN, Fox, and ABC News, NBC, CBS, everywhere is with Donald Trump. And I was going to talk about that tonight with Sean. But you know, I'm also a big wrestling fan. And sadly, we have some news to report that breaking news that WWE superstar, former 3-time heavyweight champion, Wyndham Rotunda, aka Bray Wyatt, as he's better known, has passed away. He has died at the age of 36 years old. There is no cause of death as to what contributed to Mr. Wyatt's death. However, what we have learned subsequently is several months ago, he had been off television for at least 7 months and was battling what they called a life-threatening illness. What it was, we don't know. But according to Triple H, who is the chief operating. I think he's the chief operating officer of WWE. That is his title, but he's also Vince McMahon's son-in-law. But he's responsible for talent. Well, he reported that Mike Rotunda, who is Wyndham's father, was a championship wrestler himself. I don't know if anyone is familiar with WWF back in the day, but Money Inc. He was a member of the Million Dollar Corporation with Ted DiBiase. He was known as IRS, Irvin R. Shyster, which was one of my favorite characters. I didn't care for him as well. He was too mean of a villain, but I always remember that slogan. Always remember to pay your taxes, and he would call everybody tax cheats. Wyndham Rotunda's brother, Bray Wyatt's brother, Bo, is actually a wrestler. And also, something I learned too is that Bray Wyatt, uncle, his grandfather, was also a wrestler. So he's a third generation WWF superstar. I believe his uncle on his mother's side was a tag team partner. Sean knows more about it than a little bit more about it than me, but I remember I know my wrestling. But yeah, is it Black? We might as well just go ahead and bring Sean in as we talk about WWE. Now, I haven't followed wrestling a lot, but good evening, Sean. How you doing today?
Good evening, Gavin. How are you?
I'm doing fine, man. This is some sad news to hear. Now, I know that you follow wrestling yourself. Know you've been critical of the WWE and even AEW in terms of their writing as of late, but everybody knows, and at least we know. I keep up with it with the WWE, who the superstars are, and he was actually one of them. And he had just recently came back because WWE had fired him over sometime after COVID-19 back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you're right about that. They did fire him and then they did bring him back.
Yeah, he actually just recently came back. His last appearance in the ring, I think, was with The Undertaker, who came and appeared with him.
That was when he was supposed to pass the torch from The Undertaker to Bray Wyatt, and sadly, he's not going to be able to continue on to carry on the legacy of The Undertaker. That's one of the sad parts of Bray Wyatt's passing. And again, it was a major surprise to me to hear about his passing. And I'm really sad to hear that he's gone because he was a brilliant mind that's related to the business of wrestling, creating characters, developing stories like the legendary Wyatt family and The Fiend, characters that people had loved and really just connected with. And he had gone out here and accomplished a lot of great things over the short portion of his life. I mean, he was only 36 years old, and he was, I think, a three-time WWE champion.
Yeah.
And he went out here and again just was able to get over with fans. And I thought he would be able to go on for much longer, but sadly he has passed. And I'm really sorry to hear about his passing. And my condolences go to the Rotunda family and over the passing of Mike Rotunda's son.
Yeah, well, he was with LA Knight. Yeah, his last appearance was with LA Knight. But what I remember was the fact that he actually had an appearance with The Undertaker, and that was kind of like the passing the torch.
Yeah, that was a Raw 1000.
Right, a Raw 1000, and that was this year.
Yeah.
Right, and there's been a pouring out of tributes all over Twitter. I mean, you should see the Twitter timeline. And shout out to you, Danielle. I know you asked how I was doing. I'm not fine. Excuse me. I'm doing fine. But yeah, according to this, so just a bunch of people have followed that stuff. The Rock, he said, "I'm heartbroken over the news of Bray Wyatt's passing. Always had tremendous respect and love for him and the Rotunda family. Loved his presence, promos, and ring work in connection with WWE Universe. Very unique, cool, and real character, which is hard. You know, crazy. That scratching sound. I gotta mute it. All right, I muted Sean. As I was saying, he stated, still processing losing the GOAT, Terry Funk. Yeah, Terry Funk died yesterday. Terry Funk was one of my favorites from back in the day as well. And I guess we can talk about Terry Funk too. You know, rest in peace to Terry Funk, because Terry Funk was one of the OGs of wrestling who did hardcore style, and he had made appearances on every major promotion you could think of. Whether you're talking about WWF when they had Raw is War, there's battles with Cactus Jack. They were actually tag team partners at once when they fought. One of my favorite memories was when they went against the New Age Outlaws. And I was actually watching that video when, and I don't want to play it because I'll get a copyright strike, but when Terry Funk and Mankind, well, Cactus Jack, because Mick Foley had like 3 wrestling characters. He was Dude Love, Cactus Jack, and Mankind, right? And Terry Funk was Chainsaw Charlie, right? Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and they used to do the hardcore battles, but Terry Funk was OG. He was an OG. Big E even said, man, the first dude that took me under his wing when I got signed in 2009, we spent much of our adult lives together praying for JoJo. JoJo is Bray Wyatt, is Bray Wyatt's I want to say, I guess you could say his wife. I don't think they were married, but he had been married previously, and I believe he has 4 children uh, that he's now leaving, which is this. That's the sad thing I have that he just recently had a baby about 2 years ago. So that's the sad part, is that these kids who are young, his baby girl is not going to know her father, and I feel terrible about that because this is young, Sean. 30,
Yeah, it is.
I'm 37. It's still young, so it's sad to hear of that. But yeah, but Terry Funk, passed away as well this past week, and it's my understanding Terry Funk had been battling Alzheimer's, if I'm not mistaken, of some sorts. He was not in he was not in good condition as of late, but he lived to be 78 years old. Uh, yeah, I like Terry Funk. I'll see if I can play. I might get. I want to get a copyright strike. But let's see. You know what? I'm gonna just see if I can play that one video. Yeah, this reminds me. I think the hardest death of a wrestler I ever took. The one that shocked me was Ultimate Warrior, but the worst one was Owen Hart. Right?
Yeah.
Because I remember watching that on live television. I watched that on live TV with the new when Owen Hart fell from the rafters, and Owen, you didn't see it, but when you saw Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross come on, and especially the look on Jerry Lawler's face, because Jerry Lawler was white as a ghost, and he was basically the announcer that got the heels, that promoted the heels, right, in wrestling.
Yeah.
He was in shock, and they completely broke character, and they still went on with that show, which was unbelievable. But yeah, but this was yeah, that's Cactus Jack. They were teammates at one time. They did the let's see. Yeah, this is what I remember. I won't play. I just show. I guess I won't. I could get away with just showing like the image, but that's Terry Funk as Chainsaw Charlie. There was nothing like that. They won't never have anything like that on TV. WWE has gone PG, and ECW, they've bought out their competition like ECW and WCW, so you're never going to see the Monday Night Wars like from what we saw back in the day. But yeah, man, that if Sean, if you got anything to say more about it, yeah, I remember Ultimate Warrior took me off guard because we just saw him. He was in New Orleans. Macho Man
Yeah.
was very hard for me. I remember when Andre passed, but not too much because I was a little kid. But Chris Benoit, that was a straight up murder.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was a murder suicide.
the one that shocked me was Eddie Guerrero because I had been following him since WCW, followed him all the way to the WWE Championship, and I had thought he was going to go on to greater things, but it was just a shock to hear about Eddie Guerrero's passing. And that was the one that surprised me the most. And it was sad to hear about Terry Funk yesterday. And now we're hearing about Wyndham Rotunda, also known as Bray Wyatt. Again, we lost, two greats as related to wrestling. We lost an icon in Terry Funk, and we also lost a brilliant mind for wrestling in Bray Wyatt. I mean, I wish we could have seen him go further because I believe he had a whole lot more as related to the craft of wrestling and adding to the craft of
Yeah,
wrestling. Man, he had a brilliant mind, and I wish we could have seen more of it. And that's one of the saddest parts about this is that WWE basically messed up a lot of the later part of Bray Wyatt's career by not booking him right and not really taking care of him. But he was again great talent, and it's so sad we'll never see him actualize further more of his ideas.
yeah. When he did the Fiend,
Yeah,
yeah,
Wyatt family, so many brilliant characters.
yeah, he had great promos. You can't deny that. Promos were great. I was never really, and I mean, look, I haven't watched wrestling like talking about it. I don't think wrestling is, what we have today. I know it's maybe unfair to compare the 1980s and 90s to wrestling today because it gives a disadvantage, but that's just a natural part of life. We always go back. There's always a sense of nostalgia, and the truth of the matter is, how do these guys measure up against the likes of the personalities that you had? Wrestling, Bobby the Brain Heenan even said, "How can wrestling be? Do you see wrestling having this replicating the success what you guys did with Hogan and Piper and Andre and all those guys in the 80s?" And he said, "No, it's gone." He said, "The magic is gone." They said, "Why?" He said, "Well, we've told everybody what we do. Now everybody knows what's real and what, the tricks of the trade." I think there's still business there, but is it as big as what it was, Sean? I don't think it is.
No, it's nowhere near what it was. I mean, it's nowhere near what it was in the 80s in the rock and wrestling era, and it's nowhere near what we had in the 90s in the attitude era. I mean, it's really a bland, sanitized product compared to what we got. And we got those glimpses of greatness with The Fiend. I mean, he was one of those characters who was going to take things to another level, but we don't really have that type of creativity anymore, and it's not really encouraged. I mean, the way they treated Bray Wyatt towards the end of his career, that was the thing that really upset me the most because he was looking to create different and unique perspectives as related to characters and story. And he really didn't get that support from WWE. And that's the saddest whole part of this whole thing. I mean, Bray or Wyndham was a great talent, and they just never really let him just run with the football and really take things to that next level.
Yeah. Well, may he rest in power. May they rest in peace, both Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt, two legends.
Okay. Okay, we have technical difficulties. Please stand by. Looks like a connection got lost. I'm sorry. But looks like we've got technical difficulties. I'm still waiting for Gavin to come back. We'll see if he comes back.
Yeah, Sean,
Yeah, I'm here.
can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. I don't know what's going on, guys. I was working on the internet. Um, my internet apparently, for some reason, especially in this part of the house, even though I have an adapter that allows me to have connections, uh, apparently clunked out. Let me see. I might be able to come back through the computer. I had restarted it, so I had to go. Hold on a second. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Can you hear me, Sean?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what was going on with that. So let me remove that because I had come on. I had to come on the phone to see what was going on. So he said Alexa Bliss is currently pregnant. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. It's why you probably haven't seen her too much. But I mean, hey, I haven't followed wrestling. So, but as we were saying, rest in peace to Braun Strowman. To Braun Strowman. I'm sorry. Rest in peace to Bray Wyatt and to Terry Funk, a legend, ladies and gentlemen, to both legends. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. Also, if I hadn't told you, please, if you would like, you can, of course, contribute to this channel by going to the links at the bottom. You can go to the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle if you would like to support, since YouTube does not honor, does not. All right, it's doing this shit again. Sorry. All right. So the big story, let's just go ahead and get into it, Sean, before something drops off. The big story, what's going on here? So, of course, earlier today, what I was going to be talking about is Donald Trump turning himself in. All right. Guys, I'm sorry. I just ran back into my bedroom just to do this. I'm going to have to do it on the laptop. I don't know. Obviously, it's just a technical issue, so I'm sorry about that. Sean, my apologies. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic. What I was talking about was Donald Trump turning himself in earlier today. That has been a big topic of discussion, on CNN. If you notice, they were waiting for his mugshot to be released. And I wanted to get Sean's take on it, but before we do that, I'm going to show you all, because CNN has just been blowing this whole thing up. You knew they were going to talk about it, although CNN was starting to make some right-wing turns, very traditionally, and most importantly for them, CNN is traditionally a Democratic network. They lean too far to the left with their reporting. Now, I was always brought up and told that news media, especially, should be unbiased. They didn't get that memo. So people want to do whatever they want, and CNN is one of them. And I'm not defending Donald Trump per se, but this was the booking for it. This is what they've been talking about. My parents have been watching it, Sean. I don't know about your parents, but my folks have been watching this all weekend. Of course, there are co-defendants as well. At least, as we know, and I counted, there's at least between 13 and 15 other co-defendants, including Rudy Giuliani, who turned himself in. They had a bunch of others, but Rudy Giuliani was the one that stepped out because he's the former mayor of New York. But this is Trump's mugshot. Fair use.
Interesting look that he has there.
Now, this is the first time a president, and they made sure to say this, that a president has had a booking photo. A former president has booked into jail. But they've been talking all about this. But yeah, this is CNN.
It makes me
fair
sad.
use, by the way.
It makes me sad to see a former president with a mugshot. As I mentioned earlier, I take no joy in seeing him put into the Fulton County jail. It makes me sad that a former president has conducted himself in such a way that it's warranted not one indictment, not two, not three, but 4 different jurisdictions. And to now be booked into the Fulton County jail and included in that indictment is the harassment and sheer torture of 2 women who did nothing but sign up to go and help people vote in their communities.
Jake, I mean, to see that image, Trump in his campaign once created a mugshot to use for fundraising material, and now there is former president of the United States.
Yeah, it is a stark and sad image. There it is on the left side of your screen. Fulton County Jail inmate number P011358809, otherwise known as 45th President of the United States, Donald John Trump. We see on the right side of the screen his Boeing 757 about to take off from Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, on its way back to Newark, New Jersey.
Now, y'all listen carefully.
Dana Bash.
Listen very carefully to what Jake Trapper says. I want y'all to pay attention. Listen to what he says.
No doubt the Trump campaign and his supporters will try to make sport and make light of the image on the left side of your screen. But the truth is the allegations and the conduct described in the indictment, whether or not he is found guilty, whether or not you think it is a strong case, the allegations and the conduct are factually accurate and tragic.
He says, did you hear what he said? He says the allegations in the indictment are factually accurate, but before that, he said whether Trump is found guilty or not. And what he says is a contradiction. And I'm going to explain why. as you know, anybody can be, and I've talked about this, anybody can be indicted. Anybody can be indicted. You can indict a ham sandwich, is a saying that they say among lawyers. An indictment is not a conviction. So what allegations that you put in an indictment, what you say are accurate, as what Jake Trapper was saying, and Trapper is this is a journalist, but I'm sure, and he's not a lawyer, at least to my knowledge. If he is a lawyer, I don't know that, but you're making these remarks. I think that was Jake Trapper, right? Sean?
Yeah.
That was him? Yeah, he's a journalist. He's an author, so he's not a lawyer. So when you say something is, how can you say something is factually accurate if it's an indictment, he hasn't been proven? If what he says is true, it doesn't amount to a crime. You don't know that until they present their evidence, and then the defense gets to rebut. This is not me defending Donald Trump. This is me stating what the law is.
And that image is what I think of when I think of those that conduct.
And that is now an image that will be cemented in history. I mean, how many images are there of Donald Trump? He is maybe the most famous person on the planet, but this particular photo with the Fulton County, you can tell me exactly what this is emblazoned on the corner there. That is going to be iconic and infamous is probably a better way to say it. And I think that you said that maybe they'll make light of it. Maybe some people will make light of it, but they are going to appropriate it. They are going to embrace it, and they are going to use it as the ultimate example of his entire campaign, which is they're out to get me. It doesn't make
Sean, so I'm listening to this. These are journalists. It's clear. Again, CNN leans to the left, Fox News leans to the right. News media should be middle, meaning unbiased. There should be no association with either. But when you hear this and you think of Trump turning himself in, and by the way, the district attorney of Fulton County, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, is Fani Willis, who I've been critical for a long time of. I remember when Paul Howard was running for district attorney and was prosecuting those officers in the killing of the brother that was shot outside Wendy's, and yet black people didn't show up to vote, and Paul Howard lost the election. And sure enough, those officers got off the hook. I should report to you all, as you see this, Fani Willis, who's 52 years old, from Inglewood, born in Inglewood, California, actually, has 2 children. The House Judiciary Committee, which is, I believe, predominantly GOP, if I'm not mistaken, they opened a congressional investigation into the Fulton County DA, a development that was first reported by CNN and comes the same day as Trump is slated to surrender at the county jail after being charged for participating in schemes with meddling in Georgia's 2020 election results. Yeah. Welcome, Scary Content 1209. Yes, sadly, just talked about it 30 minutes ago. Bray Wyatt had passed away. We don't know exactly the cause of death. Nothing has come out, but he was 36 years old. It's been reported he was battling a life-threatening illness, whatever that was. Allegedly, I've been hearing it was COVID-19, but we don't know if he had any other problems before that. Sean, what do you make? Now, let me play this video by Fani Willis at first. This is courtesy of CNN. So fair use CNN before you all put a copyright strike on me.
Announced charging decisions by September 1st. Willis telling a CNN affiliate over the weekend, quote, "The work is done. We're ready to go." CNN's Sarah Murray, fresh off of her 1-hour documentary on this very topic that aired last night live in Atlanta outside Fulton County Courthouse. Murray, what's your sense of things? You've covered this so closely. What's your sense of things right now in terms of timeline when this may actually happen?
Well, good morning, Phil. I still think that we are in the sort of weeks away window rather than the days away window, but it's very clear that preparations are ramping up. You can see behind me that barricades are already starting to go up around the Fulton County Courthouse. Today is the day when much of Willis's team is going to begin to work remotely, another security precaution that they're taking. And our local affiliate, WXIA, caught up with Willis at a back-to-school event over the weekend where she was very clear that the brunt of her work on this case is already done and that people may not be super thrilled with the upcoming charging announcements she has to make. Take a listen.
Some people may not be happy with the decisions that I was making, and sometimes when people are unhappy, they act in a way that could create harm. The work is accomplished. I mean, we've been working for 2.5 years. We're ready to go.
Now, obviously, they're concerned about people who may be unhappy with whatever these charging decisions are, is what's precipitating this enhanced security. And I suspect we're going to see a whole lot more of this in the coming weeks, guys.
Okay.
Vivek Ramaswamy is the GOP. They said he shined bright yesterday. I hope not. I didn't watch it. He's got as much a chance of winning as we do as pigs can fly. Thank the Lord. But Sean, you just saw the video from CNN, also with Fannie Willis and Donald Trump turning himself in. He skipped the GOP debate because he did a whole interview with Tucker Carlson. He's planning to run again. What are your thoughts about all this? We've talked about these indictments before, and it's going to lead into our final topic, also about illegal immigrants. But I want to know your opinion on this situation.
Well, this whole thing is nothing more than political theater. It's all designed to go out here and stimulate the emotions of leftists and give them an empty symbolic victory, because a Donald Trump mugshot does not go out here and invalidate Biden's whole record of failures. And that's the thing most critical thinking voters are going to be thinking about. They're not going to be caught up in their feelings about Donald Trump. No, they're going to look at the current president's whole record as related to the economy and looking at his record of failures as related to COVID and other issues. They're going to look at Joe Biden and say that, look, you can talk all you want about Donald Trump, but we're looking at your record. Now, again, many of these leftists, they are emotionally sated at seeing a picture of Donald Trump in a mugshot. But again, that's all political theater, because when you look at the big picture, white supremacy does not go out here and punish white supremacy. Satan does not cast out Satan, because if you cast out Satan, you're not going to have any power at all. And I can really see this as, again, just being political theater, because they didn't go out here and get white prosecutors to go after Donald Trump as related to these state cases. No, they went out here and got black bootlicks to go out here and do the dirty work, because they know that if they went out here and brought out white prosecutors, then that would show that white supremacy was participating in Satan, casting out Satan. So this is all just one big theatrical drama meant to get people emotional, meant to get them riled up, and then to get those on the red party scared so that they will go out here and think about, oh, maybe we should go out here and vote for somebody else. But what many people are doing is looking at this whole circus for what it is, a stunt to try to scare people into being discouraged as related to supporting Donald Trump. But what I've noticed with most people, who support Donald Trump, it's like the woman who goes out here and supports Pookie. She's going to ride or die with Pookie no matter what. And the more you attack Pookie, what happens is the more that woman is going to dig in her heels and double down on supporting Pookie. And that's the whole thing as related to these attacks on Donald Trump. They make his base stronger. They make his arguments stronger. And the more you attack him, the bigger you grow out his base, because one, you're giving Donald Trump more attention, and two, you're turning Donald Trump into a political martyr. This is what the left doesn't understand about its constant attacks on Donald Trump. What's happening is you make him stronger with every attack, and the smart thing would have been to just let him run, and this time just let him run, because he might have a chance of winning, he might have a chance of losing, but the more you attack him, the more you incentivize people to support him, the more you galvanize people behind him, because people will start to feel like their so-called democracy is at risk. And this whole attempt to go after him, again, it makes many on the left feel good to get that picture in the short term. But in the long term, what they're doing is doing Donald Trump's work for him, galvanizing his base, which never left him. And as you galvanize that base, you make him stronger. And you make that base stronger as related not only to his voting bloc, but also to a potential jury pool. And that's what these black prosecutors aren't really looking at. Many of these whites and non-blacks who support Donald Trump are going to go out here and do jury nullification, which is a term that most people don't know about, and go out here and vote on this case the same way that people do as related to many cases, like in the case of many of these races, when it's a white person on trial, they will go out here and use jury nullification to acquit that individual. So I'm looking at this whole case from the panoramic perspective, and it's the worst thing that the Biden administration allowed to happen, because you're making Donald Trump stronger. And again, the more you attack him, the more you put him in a martyr situation. And if you put him in a martyr situation, you may actually make it worse for yourself, because again, when it comes to bad boys and rebels, white women love bad boys and rebels, and you're making him into the ultimate bad boy who may lead to another political upset in 2024.
Yeah. So you think this is going to backfire on the Democrats and Biden?
It's going to backfire big time, because I see it right now. And again, I see it right now backfiring because, again, when I look at this whole situation, I look at it the same way I look at women who date bad boys. And again, people like a rebel, people like an outsider, they like a dark horse. And the more you go after Donald Trump, the more these attributes are projected onto him. So I think this is going to backfire big time. Yeah, you might have a case against him, but again, the whole thing is white supremacy does not cast out white supremacy. Satan doesn't cast out Satan. And the more you attack Satan, what you're going to do is go out here and make yourself look worse, because again, a Donald Trump mugshot does not cancel out Joe Biden's track record. A Donald Trump mugshot does not go out here and increase Joe Biden's low approval rating. A Donald Trump mugshot does not go out here and invalidate Joe Biden's failed record. And that's the thing that many on the left don't understand, because they're so caught up in their feelings and think everybody's emotional like them. But everybody isn't emotional, and we have to go out here and approach things from a critical perspective.
Yeah, well, I want to report too that Steve Sadow, who represented Gunner in his RICO Act trial, if you remember, Gunner entered an alpha plea that's part of that indictment, which Fani Lewis was a part of as well. You know, she's been going after a lot of the rap artists out in Atlanta, Georgia, under a RICO statute, Georgia's RICO statute. And he represented Gunner, who pled a best interest plea. That's an Alford plea. So when people say Alford comes from the Supreme Court case of North Carolina versus Alford, where a man pled guilty to a murder charge, a second-degree murder charge, and got life only so he could avoid facing the death penalty. And so the Supreme Court said, well, you can't play it because it was in your best interest. It doesn't change the conviction or the penalty from it. So a person pleads because it's in their best interest to plead. They're not admitting guilt. They're still trying to maintain their innocence, but they're doing it just because they said there was enough evidence that they think could prove them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and they just want to plead to get it over with. That's essentially what it is. So, and that's, yeah. So that happens. But I do see that this is, yeah, I was gonna. So I do see, do you think Trump could be acquitted? A lot of people have been asking that. Do you think anybody can be acquitted? I don't see, my thing is that with him asking those, stating those things, asking questions in and of itself, does that amount to what they're charging him? So you'd have to look at what the law actually says, what they're charging him under. They say meddling in Georgia's elections. You can, even if you don't like that person, but complaining about your loss and especially asking for a recount, stating you won in and of itself does not amount to a crime. What would meddling be? Just in my opinion, I guess what they're saying is with interference, did he do anything to change specifically, could he have changed the votes? Did he actually go in there? If he files lawsuits, which I noticed that his team was doing to challenge the results, that's legal. If he was asking the election commissioner to look into it, that in of itself is legal. Now, if he was asking her to do something that was criminal and fraudulent, that's another thing. But yes, Joe Biden's approval ratings, as you alluded to, Sean, a lot of people think this is politically motivated. I believe that too. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. And you couple that with what's all going on. I think one of the biggest things, especially with the Biden administration and Democrats, people are tired of having the same old, basically the Democrats have been catering to other groups instead of black people. They have not talked about black interests. If they do this pandering stuff. They get celebrities to come out to try and get black people to vote, but they haven't offered them anything. But they have offered things to people who are non-citizens, and particularly illegal immigrants. Now, you and I have talked about this before because we had a passionate conversation about this. I did a video about Brandon Harris, Brandon Jackson, the mayor of Chicago, asking, trying to push for monies to go towards illegal immigrants, including housing. In New York, Eric Adams is asking for money as well. He's also going back and forth with the Biden administration over housing illegal immigrants. And now in the state of Massachusetts, the officials, these are the governors, now are recommending that the citizens, they declared a state of emergency a couple of weeks ago, but now the lieutenant governor was spotted asking for its citizens to actually house some illegal immigrants. Eric Adams even suggested this, if you recall, Sean, a few months ago, and we talked about this. We talked about this in our video. So now you have the governor of Massachusetts, Governor Maura Healey, declaring a state of emergency. She says,
Maura Healey has declared a state of emergency over the migrant housing crisis. She says the number of families living in shelters is surging. Chris Tanaka is live in the Satellite Center tonight. And Chris, by making this emergency declaration, the governor's asking for the federal government's help.
Yeah, Lisa, you are correct. And this really does represent the confluence of two emerging crises. One, the migrants flooding into the state, but also the limited supply of affordable housing that's already being stressed.
As of today, close to 5,600 families with children are living in state-funded shelters, hotels, dorms, and other emergency facilities across Massachusetts.
The governor laying it all out Tuesday. Some 20,000 people in temporary housing in Massachusetts, representing an 80% increase in just 1 year, and that the state can't handle them by itself.
And critically, I am delivering an urgent and formal appeal to the federal government for intervention and action.
With the emergency declaration, the governor hopes to tap into federal funds, but also expedite work authorizations for migrants.
And we could frankly use their help at this time. Our state, as so many states are, is encountering significant labor shortages.
Massachusetts is the only state in the country with a right to shelter law. It guarantees emergency housing for homeless families that meet certain criteria. For now, there's no talk of suspending the law, as Healy called upon businesses, organizations, and entire communities to help in the fight.
We are going to keep doing everything that we can to help families in need.
Now, New York City has a right to shelter municipal rule, and Mayor Eric Adams today did ask a judge to suspend it as they deal with their own housing crunch. David?
All right, Chris, thank you.
Okay, I was muted. So that was the governor of Massachusetts who made that statement. The lieutenant governor backed her up the next day. They're asking for communities to consider sheltering these people, businesses, neighbors. This was from Florida. This was from last year on September 22nd, 2022, September 14th. This article came out and stated that Florida flies 2 plane loads of migrants to Martha's Vineyard. The moneyed summer resort became an unlikely arena in the fight over illegal immigration. Republican states have bused thousands of migrants to New York and Washington.
Excuse me.
It's no problem. They are out of their minds. Now, I'm as passionate as anybody else, Sean, but how are you when it comes to, I assume your position hasn't changed. How are you with this, where these migrants are they come into this country, albeit with an open border policy by the Biden administration, and you have the states who are the ones pushing for that, the Democratic states, the Democratic cities, the mayors like Jackson and Adams. You now have governors like Haley. They asked for this, and it seems like they're weeping what they sow. What do you think, Sean, your opinion about what this governor said? Is very similar to what Adams said. And why are the American people tolerating it?
Well, this governor basically is desperate, and she's so desperate that she shows how pathetic she is as a leader. Because for you to sit there and ask American citizens to go out here and house people who are illegal shows that you really are incompetent, because the American people have no right to go out here and house an individual in their home. According to our U.S. Constitution, under the 4th Amendment, I believe, there is no supposed to be quartering of troops. And I would believe that an illegal immigrant is the same thing as trying to quarter a troop in somebody's home. That is unconstitutional. And again, just shows how out of touch this governor is, and how her mouth wrote a check her backside can't cash, because she was possibly like Eric Adams out here virtue signaling. And as she was out here virtue signaling, trying to show how not racist she was as related to Greg Abbott sending these migrants, she wanted to go out here and think she could virtue signal until she realized that she would be overwhelmed by the millions of people who come into this country illegally every year. And now what she wants to do is try to make it where the American people and the taxpayers are responsible for these people. And I would never want to take anybody in my home like this because these individuals have not been vetted. They have not been checked for disease. We don't know anything about these individuals. And there's a serious, like I said in the previous video, there's a serious liability issue because a person coming into your home, whether they're an illegal or legal person, if they get harmed in your home or they get injured in your home, you are on the hook for that in a lawsuit. And that's, again, just irresponsible for this governor to go out here and beg people to put people in their homes. No, what they need to do is own up and admit that you went wrong. And you need to go out here and not just beg the Biden administration to give you money. No, what you need to do is start putting these folks back on the buses, send them back over to Washington, and let ICE or INS deal with these individuals. Because when these individuals enter the country illegally, it is up to INS to deal with these individuals. But these leftists, because they're so woke, what they want to say is they're not racist. So the ICE or the INS is racist, but their job is to process individuals who are entering the country illegally so that we won't have a threat to national security. Because not only is this a threat to people's homeland security, it is also a threat to national security because when you have an individual who has not been vetted, an individual who has not been checked for disease, what happens is this person puts other Americans at risk. And again, it's extremely irresponsible to sit there and ask Americans to house individuals all because you want a virtue signal. If you want a virtue signal, bring them to the governor's mansion. If you want a virtue signal, bring them to the mayor's mansion, and you house these migrants. But my whole approach to it would have been completely different. It would have been to turn the buses back because, again, any state doesn't have any jurisdiction over individuals who enter the country illegally. And it's up to the federal government to provide that support. And again, this is where the Biden administration is completely out of touch because while Joe Biden is focused on Ukraine with tunnel vision, he can answer a call to President Zelensky, but he has not talked to Eric Adams since 2022. And I doubt he's even talked to Maura Healey since 2022 or Kathy Hochul since 2022. And again, shows you where Joe Biden's priorities are. And again, really reminded me of George W. Bush in his second term as related to the way he mismanaged Hurricane Katrina, basically leaving people out here in the same way that he left people out there after Hurricane Katrina. I look at Joe Biden's irresponsible and disconnected approach to this crisis. I mean, he's basically leaving states out here the same way he left the entire state of Louisiana out here with Hurricane Katrina. Eric Adams is basically Ray Nagin one more again, and Maura Healey is the governor of Louisiana, basically sitting out here. And as they sit out here begging and pleading for help, they're basically looking like they're being set up to be defeated in the next election because this is an unmitigated disaster, and it's an unmitigated disaster all brought on by woke leftists who want to go out here and virtue signal, and they wanted the virtue signal to try to spite Greg Abbott, but all they did was prove him right in that the U.S. is ill-equipped to care for all of these individuals who have entered the country illegally. And what they further don't want to argue is that this is also a threat to national security.
Yeah, well, it's a threat to national security. It's certainly a threat to personal security. If you're letting people in, you're not keeping track of them. You're telling American citizens now to open up their homes. We're headed into a recession right now. I don't know if many people know. The economy is not back on. I just read an article from Business Insider that said that the recession, the U.S. economy is still headed for a recession. The stock market crashed, I believe, earlier today. This is from August 22nd, 2023. So, according to Business Insider, they even stated that in an October 2022 poll in which 65% of the economists it surveyed said a recession would arrive in the following 12 months. Things were supposed to get ugly and soon. Now, while unemployment is below 4%, inflation is sliding. Consumers are still spending, and the S&P 500 rallied as much as 20% this year before cooling off recently. And the GDP, which is the gross domestic product, is projected to grow by 1.9% in this third quarter. They said hardly recession material. But they said just because the economy's flight path seems gentle now doesn't mean that there won't be turbulence ahead. And according to some Wall Street strategists and economics I've spoken with, this is the author of this article. In recent weeks, there's plenty of evidence that a recession is on the way. In other words, bulls are declaring victory far too early. Now, what I mean by all of this, why I'm bringing this up, it affects all of us when we have more people in this country. And I'm not going to say that there aren't some who legitimately want to come to America and learn and be a part of the American experience and dream. But there's also a process in which it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to go to customs and borders. You're supposed to be screened like they did up in New York when immigrants arrived from Europe and so forth. You go through customs, you get checked for smallpox or the flu, you get treated. You do that even at the border. They treat you for illnesses and stuff. That's and diseases to prevent a pandemic. And keep in mind, during a pandemic that we had, the president was still calling for open borders. That was problematic, in my opinion.
It was.
At Ellis Island. When you arrived at Ellis Island, they used to treat you, they would examine you before they let you in the country. And this is in the early 1900s. And they wouldn't do this here. They would screen them. So I think that, yes, the Biden administration is in trouble. I think this backfired. They thought it would get everybody on board, but now instead of focusing on issues, when they chose to do pandering, when they played on emotions when you think on emotions and not on rationale, not on logic, this is what happens. Chaos erupts. You never let your emotions cloud your judgment. And the United States is hurting right now. And Sean, I don't know if it's going to get better anytime soon. I mean, I don't think any president really who you put in is going to change it. Trump actually is the one, like, when he talk about searing up the border, I give credit where the credit is due. He actually was doing stuff like that. Some of his policies, if you looked at it, were not that bad.
No, not really.
They were not that bad, if we're being honest. But on the other hand, Biden has not been that great. And his policies have hurt.
Yep.
By the way, Eric Adams was actually on CBS Morning to talk about the influx of asylum seekers. Did you see this, Sean? I'm going to just play this right quick. Hold on.
This is all tied to immigration, migrants coming here to the city. It's unfolding on city streets, and we are more than 2,000 miles, of course, from the southern border. New York's leaders say they are struggling to house more than 57,000 asylum seekers currently in the city's care, more arriving every week. Some of those migrants without beds indoors have been sleeping on the streets. Mayor Eric Adams is now sounding the alarm and says he wants the federal government to take action. And Mayor Adams joins us right now. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yesterday you said you're on pace to spend $5 billion on migrant care in this fiscal year. To give people some perspective, that is more than the city spends on sanitation, parks, and the fire department combined. So you're asking for money here. Do I have that right?
A combination, more than money, because the faucet is flowing. We have to stop the faucet. We have to make sure we have a real decompression strategy at the border. And we have to ensure that we have real immigration reform, because it's going to continue. It's not sustainable. When you look at 10,000 a month, the math just does not add up.
Reform to the system is a long-term fix. That's going to have to go through Congress. Short-term, are you frustrated with the Biden administration? Do you place blame on them for a more welcoming stance that has led to this record surge?
There's a lot of blame to go around. Again, the Republicans have been blocking real immigration reform. We're seeing that FEMA is using dollars on the southern border to allow people to bus people to New York City. And what's at the heart of all of this for me is, what is more American than the right to work? Why are we having thousands of people here that are not given the basic premise? The precursor to sleep, to American dream, is the ability to work.
It's a 1996 law. It says you got to sit out for 5 months, right? You need that work.
And that's even with an asterisk, because even when you sit out for those 5 months, the backlog is so much. Some people could wait anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years. And so we're saying, in essence, that we have to take care of 97,000 people: food, shelter, clothing, education, the children, the entire combination, and it just continues to flow.
So how much are you asking for? What are you asking the government for in terms of dollars? How much are you asking?
Well, in the 3 years, this is a $12 billion price tag. So far, we have $100 million, a little over $100 million that we received.
Woo!
This is their issue. This is a
Whoa.
national issue, and it should be treated as such. And that's why the governor of Massachusetts stated should not be pushed on the stage.
But I hear them say, Mr. Mayor, that, let's see, New York, I think, has gotten about $140 million more, they say, than any other city that's not a border city in this country. That there's only so much that they can do. What do you say to that?
Well, think about what happened in the last few months. We have created a funnel. All of the bordering states have now took the funnel right to New York City. New York City is the economic engine of this entire state and country. If you decimate this city, you're going to decimate the foundation of what's happening. Look at Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, and now you're hearing the governor of Massachusetts. And so when people say, well, we gave them $100 million, $12 billion bill?
Yeah.
I mean, what table are we dining
at? When you see all the people that are just laying in the streets, you walk by, it is jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
And the numbers keep coming and coming when you think, I don't have any more room at the end, so to speak.
Along with the unhoused people we already have here.
Exactly. And think about the miracle that took place over the last year in April, when this really started coming from a governor who wanted to use people as pawns. When you do an analysis of other cities, you did not see our migrant asylum seekers sleeping on the streets. You didn't see the tent. You don't see tent cities here. You don't see the cardboard boxes here. We made a major inroad on street homelessness. So what you saw at the Roosevelt a few days ago is because the dam finally burst.
Yeah. My God. Sean, did the dam finally burst?
No, all the jive finally got called on. Because all Eric Adams was doing was talking some jive all throughout that entire interview. And as he sat there talking jive, what he wanted to do was make it look like the Republicans were the problem, when these were issues that he already knew about before he started virtue signaling. Now, as related to that whole right to work thing and the work documents, there has to be a vetting process in order for people to find out about the backgrounds of these individuals, because them waiting 5 months was all about making sure that this individual doesn't have any sort of criminal records or any sort of mental health issues. We want to find out who this person is. That's what that 96 law was all about, because you don't know if you're going out here and dealing with an individual who has sex offenses, an individual who has been participating in all sorts of other criminal activity, or somebody who has mental health issues. So we want to go out here and vet these individuals before they come into the country. And they want to expedite this whole process to get these individuals working because they're dealing with the heavy burden of having to care for them. But that was something they should have thought about before they started running their mouths and talking about how they were going to not be so like Donald Trump. And again, what's driving all of this whole situation is that they wanted to spite Donald Trump. And again, running on feelings instead of critically thinking, because you're sitting here saying, oh, I need so much money. Well, what does Greg Abbott need? Because Greg Abbott's been dealing with this. Same thing with the governor of Arizona. They've been dealing with this for years. And as they've been dealing with this, they've had to deal with numerous fiscal issues. But Eric Adams needs $12 billion, and he's only got, 50,000 migrants, whereas Greg Abbott has to deal with 3 to 4 million being processed. And again, wants to go out here and deflect from the Biden administration and say it's to Republicans when it's the Biden administration was the one in charge. They were the one who didn't want to do anything about the border, but they wanted to say Donald Trump is a racist and say that he was a white supremacist. But the whole thing is you do need a secure border in order to maintain national security. And I don't know if the only way we can get that people to understand this, sadly, is a tragedy happening. I mean, I look at this whole situation and I listen to Eric Adams. Again, this is a bootleg sitting up here only thinking about trying to virtue signal, still trying to get brownie points, even though he's basically been asked out by Joe Biden and Kathy Hochul. They've both blown him off, but he's still out here bootlicking, buck dancing, and bojangling like the cream of wheat man that he is, and out here being a clown like the clown that he is, out here trying to go out here and continue to play the same games. And as he continues to play these games, he's still thinking that he can go out here and gain some favor. But this whole situation is basically blown up. He's been left to be the fall guy. He's still thinking he can go out here and get $1 billion out of people. He's still thinking he can get this $12 billion, but that $12 billion ain't coming. No, that $12 billion ain't coming at all. And it's not going to come at all because this got to go through Congress. And we know that anything going through Congress is next to impossible with Republicans in charge. And with Republicans in charge, there's no way that this is going to be able to go through. And again, just shows me how disconnected and out of touch this mayor is and how disconnected and out of touch all these members of the Blue Party are.
Yeah. That was some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean, tell everybody, I know you probably haven't done it yet, but your live stream tomorrow.
I have no idea. I may follow up on a video I just did about black women and how black men, working class good brothers, were upset about the way I got to figure it out. It's like I did a video today that got buffered. It was called how working class black men's perceptions of black women changed during the crack epidemic. And that may be the live stream that I do. That may be the live stream for tomorrow because the whole video got buffered by YouTube because they didn't want to hear what I was saying. So I may follow up and do a new live stream that goes more in depth on the subject.
All right. Well, yeah, that would be good. I'm sure you probably even have a video you might be doing about Trump's arrest one day.
Yeah, that may be following up.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone hit that like, share, and subscribe button as well. We're going to wrap this thing up. We've been here for over an hour and 22 minutes. I'm sorry again about the technical difficulties we were having. Please support this channel by donating to the Cash App, PayPal, Zelle at the link at the bottom. Sean, before you get off, and I'm going to end the channel, I wanted to talk to you briefly and get your take on something. Well, we're wrapping this thing up, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Also, make sure you're hitting that notification bell so that when we go live, you'll know when we go live. I know sometimes people get scrubbed, but go ahead and do that. And again, we want to thank all for tuning in. Also, check out my book on Kindle, The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., the instruction of due process in the United States. Sean, thank you once again.
All right, thank you.
All right, and this has been another edition of Random Topic Thursdays, ladies and gentlemen. The hottest live stream on YouTube in the cosmos. I'll holla. Peace. Hold on, Sean.